Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for The Witcher Season 1 on Netflix. And I really enjoyed this. I had been a fan of the game series, mainly starting with the second game and going through and really loving The Witcher 3. And I was excited to see kind of how this went along. And for the most part, it works out pretty well. The biggest uh, downside I had to this is how it is structured and how it delivers information. Basically, you aren't really sure when the present is until mainly towards the end of it. You have kind of a hard time figuring out where your main focal point needs to be, and I understand it's kind of difficult to do that with how the books are kind of structured and detailing their information because you have like three different kind of people to juggle throughout this whole thing: Geralt of Rivia, Yennefer, and Cirilla, and their stories kind of vie as we try and get all the pertinent information till we get to our focalized center point around Cirilla. She's the one that's pretty much detailed in the present. So, other than that, mainly that was my biggest kind of issue. Other than that, we get a good understanding of each of these three characters and the rest of them around them, and we get a very good kind of set up of who these characters are and kind of what the main kind of issue is that's pretty much going to be drawing us through any kind of subsequent seasons. Because Geralt of Rivia is a witcher, pretty much a monster hunter that will do almost anything for coin. But that's the kind of interesting aspect of him, is that he doesn't actually do anything for coin, because the biggest kind of thing we get set up with the whole Blaviken situation is he runs into this princess who was born under this ill moon and is thought to be cursed, and this mage Stregobor is like, I kind of want her dead so I can like study her body and shit. And the princess is like, I want to kill that motherfucker. And we are brought up with the scenario of choosing the lesser of two evils. Geralt thinks he is successful in telling Renfri to stop this and just go and live her life. However, she is intent in bringing Stregobor out. He goes in, takes out her companions very effectively, and it really works very well. Just Henry Cavill just does a great job of like embodying Geralt, from the voice to his attitude to his fighting style, and this of just Geralt is able to kind of balance out the effects of being big but quick and just like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And of course he is able to use magic as well, granted to a limited degree because of the mutations he has, and just takes him out. Renfri, of course, is threatening a child, but I mean the child was working with Stregobor, but he's able to have a fight with her and pretty much takes her out. And he, of course, unintentionally had to choose a lesser of two evils kind of approach to this whole scenario. Kind of like the Destiny thing, because his destiny is tied to a girl in the woods. That gets us in later and ties us into Cirilla's whole thing. But of course, Dragonborn's like, give me that body. He's like, fuck you. And the rest of the town's like, get out of here, Butcher. And that's how he gets the whole moniker of Butcher of Blaviken. Even though it wasn't like he killed like everybody and he saved a child's life, but even the child's like, you should go and everything. I'm like, fuckers. Especially when he killed this monster outside, and evidently the dude in town was like, hey, that was used for population control. I'm like, you asshole. So he's going around doing his thing. We see him doing other kind of things, being brought into the effect of helping. Well, this bard's like, hey, I know who you are, Yaskir, and I love him. We get to see all of his different kind of songs, and he has his own kind of troubles. He's trying to be this kind of bard dude doing his thing. He gets into love trouble and everything, but he's also following around Geralt. He's like, hey, I can like PR your image pretty much. He's like, leave me alone. They both get captured by this king of the elves, and he's of course threatening to kill them and all that, but Geralt's able to talk him down and be like, listen, move somewhere else, help your people. Getting into a war that'll pretty much get you and the other humans into a zero-sum game of just wiping everybody else out isn't gonna work. do what's best for your people and go somewhere that you can actually thrive. And this actually gets through to the Elven King, and he lets Geralt and Jaskier go. It's like, okay, and of course Jaskier starts doing his song and doing everything as we see him going on to other adventures. We see Geralt having to deal with a monster thing in Temeria with King Foltest, and seeing just how that kind of whole thing went was just like kind of crazy, because you're thinking it's one kind of thing, but he's able to piece all these different things together of it's a Striga, and him trying to help the monster, because even though he's a witcher and has monsters to kill, we do see him kill monsters, but usually, in most cases, the monsters are like the people or anything involved. And in this case, it's like, okay, there is a monster involved, but he tries his best to save it, and he's able to do it successfully, even though he finds out it's because the kid was cursed by a jilted lover because the king had relations with his sister, and that child had then been cursed to turn into a monster. It's like, ooh, that's kind of a fucked up scenario. And of course, this scenario is important because it introduces another sorceress, Triss Merigold. I'm like, okay. See, I was really kind of weird in like having the two balancing effect of the game versus what we see in the show. I had no problem with Triss here. It was just like, okay, I'm just thinking of like this redheaded chick, and I'm like, okay, it works. She was very nice to Geralt and everything, and I'm like, okay, we'll have to see how their kind of relationship goes on going forward, because she was nice to Geralt, and Geralt was his usual kind of self to her. He wasn't a complete another cock of a man, but he's like, all right, because another Witcher had been involved in that scenario and killed. It's like, that's not good, especially since the Order's pretty much bare bones at this point. So he keeps going on. He deals with a dragon and everything, and deals with a djinn, because he needed the djinn because he wanted to go to sleep. And that is where his paths cross with Yennefer. And we see Yennefer doing her training in Aretuza, being bought for 4 marks by Tissaia and trained. And she, of course, is a quarter elf, and that has led to complications of her being a hunchback and kind of like messed up. And she, of course, has the ability to harness the kind of chaos. That's how kind of magic works in this realm of harnessing a chaos kind of force. And it's done in an effective kind of introduction, as to say it brings in the recruits and be like, okay, levitate the rock. And of course, the one person that we see do it does levitate the rock, but there's a rock and a thing of flowers there, and because she didn't use the flowers, because everything has a price. You need certain energy to do certain things. One of her hands goes completely and utterly gnarly as fuck, and like, ah! And of course, the Say's like, yeah, you dumbass, use the flowers. So, pretty much setting up that kind of thing of using those kind of things. It's like, okay. And Yennefer has a horrible, horrible time. Her life has pretty much sucked. She's pretty much been used to do the livestock and everything, and pretty much her family sold her off to pretty much almost probably being an experiment. So she's going through, she has a hard time channeling the kind of chaos, because she can do things in kind of burst moments because of her emotions and everything. She keeps learning and everything, and gets to a point where she starts seeing what's going on with this whole brotherhood, seeing that a couple of her classmates are turned into slugs to essentially power and make this thing a conduit to make it easier for magic or whatnot. It doesn't get that in depth. I hope we get a little bit more information, because it's like, okay, that's good for a centralized location, but how does that help completely in the long run? I mean, granted, it fortifies that area, but what else do you do when you're like slug people in a pond doing shit? Right? But she's able to kind of get better control and everything, and they are thinking of sending her to Ascension and everything. Now, granted, this gets messy because she's in a relationship with another sorcerer, but he betrays her kind of secrets to her master, to his master, and she kind of betrays his secrets to her master, and they kind of fuck each other over a little bit. And the thing is, she was supposed to go to Erden, but because of the elven blood in her, they were going to send her to Nilfgaard, and she's like, I ain't doing that. So she misses her ascension ceremony, and forces the dude to remake her, but at the price of her reproductive organs. so she becomes beautiful and everything, but she can no longer have children. And the thing is, we see a reoccurring theme with her that she's got all this power and she wants everything because she has been fucked over. So it's not. She's an interesting character mainly because she keeps trying to do all these things to get her life into some kind of semblance of what she wants as a kind of peace. But she does like kind of shitty things a lot of the time. And she's got good reasons, kind of. I say good, but it's like valid reasons from her point of view, and you're like, gotta watch that. So she kind of messes with the politics of the whole place, and it leads to unholy shit going on later on. So she decides to pretty much go in there, sashay her way into there, and takes over the Eridan position. And the thing is, she's then 30 years later, pretty much with the wife, and the wife has only been able to produce female offspring, and an assassin sent after her. And this is an important thing because it then gets brought up into Yennefer's lasting kind of motivation of wanting a legacy and wanting what was taken from her. Because, granted, she did want to be beautiful and everything, but the price she didn't really understand it until later, until she kind of saw this one woman have a baby, pretty much give her up because they've been teleporting through these portals to get away from the assassin, but it's still tracking them. This woman was pretty much offering up her child to save herself. I'm like, damn, fuck you. She gets killed. Yennefer's able to take the baby, but is injured hopping through the portal, and we see that has killed the baby, and that, of course, leads her onto a track of trying to regain her fertility. This comes together with Geralt and Jin, and we see that Jaskier is trying to pretty much use the Jin, but the Jin's like, fuck your shit, and magically injures him, so Geralt takes him to this elf, and he's like, hey, do you know of any kind of like mages in the area? He's like, yeah, it's in this town, but you gotta watch it because it's kind of crazy. And of course introduces us to Yennefer, who's having kind of like an orgy party, but he's like, hey, can you kind of help us? He had like 2 wishes, he's got a 3rd one left. We kind of need help because he's gonna die. And she agrees to help, but only in her mind, she's like, I need a condition of I want the Jinn for my reproductive organs and shit, as she was going to use herself as a vessel to contain the Jinn. So she's pretty much trying to force him to say his last wish and get rid of it, but we find out that Geralt's the one that had it because he wanted this one dude's head to pop, and instead pops like, ah shit, I got it. And she's trying to control and contain the Jinn, but she's like unable to do it because it's going completely crazy. And Geralt uses his last wish to save her, but we aren't privy to the wish at that point. They bang, and then Geralt's pretty much gone by that way, and then they reconnect at the dragon scene where they're hunting a dragon but decide not to kill it because it's a rare one and there's an egg there, and they get a awesome fight scene between the two of them. Now, granted, it doesn't get up to the same kind of effect of the Blaviken fight scene, but it's still pretty well done where I'm like, alright, that's entertaining, and it really shows off each character's prowess, because up until this point, we really hadn't seen Yennefer fighting with just kind of swords and knives and everything. We are shown that she's a confident fighter. Now, granted, she's probably got more experience with her magics, but, of course, the one dragon that's a man, can take the form of a man, pretty much lays down the stuff of like, lady, you're probably never going to get your reproductive organs back. And Geralt used his wish to kind of entwine your guys' fates. This, of course, pisses Yennefer off. I'm like, fuck you. Of course, Geralt kind of takes his anger out on Jaskier, and is like, whatever. So this kind of leads us towards the end of our story, which is kind of the beginning present, where we see this kingdom of Cintra is invaded by the Nilfgaardians. And this is important because Yennefer was going to be sent to Nilfgaard. And if there had been a better mage there, it probably wouldn't have gotten to the point where the rightful heir to Nilfgaard was able to regain control. They are using mages as battle instruments instead of the mages kind of using the states to do whatever they wanted, because the Brotherhood likes to do its own kind of things. We see that as Yennefer and Tissaia are like, Nilfgaard's doing some shady shit. But the rest of the council like, screw this shit. Fuck it, we don't want to be involved. Neutral. And then Tissaia and Yennefer are able to get a group together and like, we're going to have to kind of deal with this. Now that's more into the end portion of Nilfgaard's invasion. They invade Cintra and it's like, why is that? That's kind of important because of Cirilla. And that's mainly because we see this main agent, Cahir, needs Cirilla for some unexplained reason. And we kind of get a little bit lowdown of her that, yeah, she's the product of the current queen's daughter and this Hedgehog Knight dude. And Geralt was there at the kind of suitor ceremony and was able to protect the Hedgehog Knight dude. He's like, I love your daughter and I want to marry her. And the queen's like, F that noise! Kill his ass! But see, the thing is, he had saved the, he is the king in the present, but he wasn't the king completely at that time because they turned into a double wedding thing. But he saved that dude's life and wanted to do the law of surprise kind of thing. That becomes important because you can't kill someone for taking their law of surprise. It's pretty much saying, alright, you will repay me with something that you have that you don't know yet. And that becomes important because they do their thing. We see that the queen's daughter has these kind of crazy-ass powers that aren't completely explained. I know a little bit more because of the video games, but I don't know how exactly they're going to do it in the show. So it's like, oh shit, they're fucking some shit up, and she's doing some kind of like chant in the Elder language, and it's like, and Geralt's like, that ain't fucking good, and helps deal with it, as well as the mage Mousak as well. But they get married and everything, and the knight dude gets back into his regular form because he was cursed. He's like, hey, what do you want? And Geralt's like, fine, I'll just do law of surprise. But this really turns into the recurring theme of how well he has to deliver the word fuck, because then the daughter pukes. He's like, ah, shit, she's pregnant, so the child's yours. He's like, God, he's like, fuck. Oh, I'm just like, he can't win with that. And that's important because that's Cirilla. And we see, as it's getting closer to Nilfgaard's invasion, before it actually happens, that Geralt comes and is like, listen, I demand to do my law of surprise, so that way you give Ciri to me, she will be safe with me. Once the danger's passed, I'll bring her back. And of course, the queen ain't having none of that noise. Actually tried to even pass off just this random-ass chick as Cirilla. He's like, I'm not having that. He gets locked up, and then everything kind of happens. Now, granted, the way I'm kind of telling it is a little bit different than how it's happened in the show, because we see that the queen had gone out with her husband. They fought the Nilfgaardian forces, but the husband dies. She's severely wounded. Pretty much tells Cirilla that she has to find Geralt of Rivia. Sends her off, but she gets separated with pretty much everybody. Has to like go through all these war-torn things. Meets up with this elf boy, Dara, and they get dragged into the woods with these dryad people. It's like, okay. She has like a vision quest with a tree thing. It's like, what the fuck? That really wasn't that explained. I don't know. It might pop up later, but we'll kind of see. They had to do a lot of information dumping in certain instances. I kind of wish that they had taken more time with more episodes. I'm like, not that this is horrible, but I'm like, a better kind of way for this to have been done would have to anchored it at the present. Cirilla had popped into a tavern. We see Jaskier pretty much relating the love tale of Geralt and Yennefer, and then giving us the flashback information, kind of a more kind of easily digestible format, potentially. That's just how I would have done it. But she's pretty much going around through, and that kind of heads up with Cahir. He's able to have captured Mousak, decides to employ the services of a Doppler, shapeshifter, sends Mousak in to pretty much get her out, and they kind of have to deal with him. And then there's a fight between the Doppler and Cahir, because he finds out who Cirilla is. It's like, I'm not doing, like, it wasn't kind of adequately explained, because he was able to capture her and tie her up, but then he goes to pretty much fight the Cahir dude, and then just escapes anyway. Let's see here. She gets away. Dara's like, I ain't having none of this shit. Goes off. She pretty much is trying to figure out what to do we see some other scenes with Geralt dealing with what's going on, seeing the queen die and everything, and he has to deal with like these undead people, and it brings us kind of closer to everything going on. We see that Cirilla gets into a town and is trying to kind of survive, and this woman is trying to like help her out multiple times before she actually goes with her, and I'm like, something's not right here, because I thought that there was going to be more of a bad scenario, but evidently it's more of a kind of destiny thing to kind of bring her, what you could almost call a plot demanding kind of thing, that she be at this one farm because Geralt saved the husband because he was trying to like effectively dispose of these corpses, but Geralt's like, hey, there's some like shit around here, get out. He's able to take him down, but he gets bitten and he goes into this kind of fever dream because of everything going on, and we see parts of him, like him being presented to the Witchers, this mage that was his mother, and we get reference to Vesemir. I'm like, oh, okay, that'll be interesting to see. But he's kind of waking up at the same time that we see Yennefer and the mages dealing with the whole Sodden Hill. And that was a really good fight scene with the Sodden Hill as they're trying to help these refugees and kind of stop Nilfgaard's advance. They're not entirely successful, but they are able to kind of like bloody them enough for the rest of the northern kingdoms to kind of come and consolidate and kind of enforce a somewhat stalemate-ish order. But they do a good job of doing all these different kind of magical things. We see someone using we see Triss Merigold using kind of like not necromancy, like botiomancy, if you will, like where she can have control of different kinds of plants and everything, using kind of roots to make a door to kind of stop people, using like mushrooms and everything to like mess with people and all that. We see fog employed, we see fire employed, we see how Nilfgaard doesn't really have that much regard for their mages and like will order them to use up all their life force to make a fireball to hurl at people, and Yennefer being like, fuck that. But it's just going to show how effective mages and regular human forces can be on the Nilfgaardian side, even though the Brotherhood mages were able to fuck them up a good bit. We saw some good deaths, but at the end, the Nilfgaardian forces were able to just kind of mess them up completely. Yennefer was severely injured, and Tissaia was still alive, and it's like, oh. And so was, Triss was kind of messed up too, so we'll kind of have to see how they kind of work out in the next season. But it kind of ends. We see Geralt gets to the homestead. Cirilla pretty much had a vision and had ran into the forest, but they finally come together, and it's like, all right, cool. And she's like, who's Yennefer? And it's like, okay, they need them together. So I liked seeing all the different kind of stories and seeing Geralt and kind of his view on life of trying to do the right thing and not be a complete dick about it. Now, granted, he does do dick kind of things, but his objective is to kind of do the least kind of harm. Yennefer is very kind of focused on herself and trying to improve the different kind of problems that she has, and her trying to struggle with that's an interesting scenario. Cirilla got the least amount of development, I feel. Not that it was horrendous, but she mainly had to go through and be like, oh, you have to be strong and everything, and is pretty much reacting to a lot of things. So hopefully in the next season we see her more kind of develop, because we do get moments of development of her kind of stealing things and her trying to help different people and see what's actually going on in the world since she'd been sheltered as a princess. But this season was mainly showing who Geralt of Rivia is, who Yennefer is, and then kind of getting them together and see what their kind of effect I think will be on Cirilla next season. And we got some pretty good different kind of lore for different monsters, and those actually being kind of like, it's kind of funny, you're thinking, okay, Cirilla and this Nilfgaard thing is the kind of main quest, and then we just see Geralt doing all these different kind of side quests throughout. But it was good to see that because it developed character, lore, and different kind of scenarios throughout the world to like build it for us. That way we understand where we're at. We have to wait till 2021 for that to come out, but I enjoyed it and can't wait to see kind of where they go next with it. I'm like, okay, you really did a nice actualization of the character of Geralt, and I just want to see more of him. Yeah, I'm just good of pretty much seeing scenario. You could pretty much do a season of just Geralt reacting to situations and him just pretty much going, fuck. And I'm pretty much good. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I would recommend watching this if you're into character development, cool kind of action and fantasy. If you're squeamish or don't really like scary or bloody or kind of screwed up things, I wouldn't recommend this for you. Just like, no, generally, no, don't do it. No. But if you're into kind of stuff like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and all that kind of stuff, I think you definitely have an enjoyable time with this. So those are my opinions on the Witcher. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.